Welcome to the decision-making exercise portion of this episode, a partnership between CATO and The Debrief. Hi, my name is Josh Wofford, and I'm a board member with the California Association of Tactical Officers. Today, we're going to go over a DME, a decision-making exercise, a partnership between CATO and The Debrief to go along with this episode. A decision-making exercise places you in the position of a leader on scene at a critical incident and allows you to make decisions as if you were there. The decision-making exercise will take the following format. You'll be given a scenario and some questions to go along with that scenario that place you in a dilemma and force you to make a decision just as if you were on scene. There'll be 3 parts of this decision-making exercise, giving you an opportunity to walk through the entire scenario, placing you in that situation as best we can. The purpose of the decision-making exercises is to tap into the collective knowledge of your team. The way to conduct these decision-making exercises is to read part 1 and the questions that go along with it. Give about 10 minutes for your team to discuss how they would address the scenario in part 1. Allow team members with less tenure to talk first so that they're not influenced by team members with more authority. After that 10 minutes, move on to part 2 and repeat. Part 2 will just be an extension of the scenario, taking you through the timeline that you would experience as a leader on scene at a critical incident. After part 2 and that 10-minute discussion, move on to part 3 and do the same thing. Go through the questions, allow that discussion to occur, and then you can end the decision-making exercise. The objective of this decision-making exercise is to place you in the situation the best we can to live through it, to make those decisions under real time, under the circumstances that the people in the scenario faced. We also want to tap into that corporate knowledge that's contained in your team so that information on how to address the situation gets out to all team members. After you're done conducting the decision-making exercise, move on to watching the debrief to see how it played out in real time. Okay, let's start with part 1 of the decision-making exercise. It's an active shooter scenario and your initial response. It's a typical weekday morning at a large high school. Suddenly, a call comes into the police department. There's an active shooter on campus. Multiple reports confirm shots fired, and students and teachers are in a panic, with some taking shelter and others attempting to flee the building. As the first responder units arrive, they encounter a chaotic scene. Students and teachers are frantically trying to escape, while others are trapped inside. The shooter's exact location is unknown, and there are conflicting reports about how many shooters there might be. Here are the questions that you need to answer. How do you establish situational awareness in such a chaotic environment? What techniques can you use to gather reliable intelligence quickly? Question 2, considering the fog and friction concept, what steps can you take to mitigate the confusion and ensure accurate communication among responding units? Question 3, how do you prioritize actions when the shooter's exact location and the number of shooters are unknown? Question 4, what measures can you implement to secure the perimeter and prevent further casualties while locating the shooter? Those are the 4 questions that you need to answer. Pause the video, take 10 minutes to answer the questions with your team, and then move on to part 2. Welcome back to part 2, resource allocation. Here's your scenario. Within minutes, additional officers, medics, and fire department personnel arrive at the scene. Communication channels are overwhelmed, and there are conflicting reports about the shooter's movements and the number of casualties. The school's layout with multiple buildings and numerous entry points add to the complexity. The scene is chaotic, with injured students needing medical attention while the threat is still active. The school resource officer who is on scene has announced over the radio that he is hearing fireworks or gunshots and is advising that you lock down the school and keep personnel 500 feet away from the school auditorium. Here are the questions that you need to answer. Question 1, how do you establish a command and control architecture to effectively manage the influx of resources and personnel? Question 2, what strategies can you use to prioritize resource allocation between neutralizing the threat and providing medical assistance to the injured? Question 3, how can you utilize the center of gravity concept to determine the most critical areas that need immediate attention? Question 4, considering task saturation, how do you prevent information overload and ensure that critical information is relayed effectively? Question 5, what should you do with the information provided by the school resource officer? Those are your 5 questions. Pause the video, take 10 minutes to discuss and answer the questions with your team, and then move on to part 3. Here's part 3 of your decision-making exercise, containment and neutralization. The shooter is still active inside the school and the immediate threat continues. The exact location of the shooter is still unknown, and there are multiple injured students and teachers throughout the building. Here are your discussion questions. 1, how do you coordinate the search for the shooter while ensuring the safety of the students and staff? Question 2, what tactics can be employed to isolate and contain the shooter minimizing their ability to move and cause further harm. Question 3. How do you integrate intelligence from various sources, CCTV, social media, eyewitness reports, to enhance your real-time decision-making? Question 4. What role does situational awareness and a common operational picture play in dynamically adjusting your strategy as new information comes in? Question 5. How do you use the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act, to make real-time decisions during the ongoing crisis? These are your 5 questions. Pause the video, take 10 minutes to discuss amongst your team and answer the questions, and then watch the debrief episode outlining this event. We hope that you enjoyed this decision-making exercise. The goal of these exercises is to make you think, challenge your team's processes, and hopefully prepare you for similar circumstances. Some topics that we hope you thought of and discuss for this exercise are your initial response and when you make entry, how to manage and effectively use the arriving resources, how to weigh the conflicting priorities of your officer's safety, the need to locate the shooter or shooters, and the need to treat and evacuate victims who may be gravely injured. Thank you for participating in this DME, and until our next exercise, be safe.